Welcome back to Ground Pass. Today we are diving into day 2 of the Australian Open with a very special guest. He's not just a fan of the sport, he's a true tennis insider who knows the ins and outs of the tournaments like few others do. From behind the scenes scoops to razor sharp analysis, Craig Shapiro brings a perspective that tennis fans can't get enough of. At least I can't anyway. Craig, so good to have you back on the show. I'm super excited to dive into our conversation. How are you doing?
Very nice to see you, Anastasia. This is my tree canopied headquarters. Just about 20 minutes with a 10-minute walk and a 10-minute tram ride that's free to, Melbourne Park, to the tennis, which is, this place is a dream. And it's nice to see you. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you. I'm looking at your view out the window and I'm just thinking it looks like such a gorgeous day. But before we jump in, I think I've been kind of leading all my episodes with this. It's impossible to comment on anything without mentioning what's going on in Los Angeles and California with the fires. And I know you live partly there most of the year as well, right?
I think I split the year 20 weeks and 20 weeks between New York and LA, and then I think it was probably about 10 to 12 weeks out at tournaments. I was my neighborhood was evacuated like 2 hours after I arrived at the airport, and they got that fire under control super quick. But Qantas doesn't have Wi-Fi on their planes, which is unbelievable. So we had sort of
especially for such a long flight.
It's crazy. So 16 hours, not knowing what was going on. They got the fire that was that I could see from my house under control quickly. But, this is a September 11th situation. I had the displeasure of, being very tight to that situation as well. And everything from the fear and the acrid air and the destruction and the war zone stance is super similar. So I've been kind of quiet. I'm waiting. My brother and my sister-in-law, my nieces have had to sleep out because they're right on the warning line in Encino. It's the worst thing that ever could happen. Like a year or two ago, there was huge rain. And all that rain became fuel up in these neighborhoods and these mountains and these canyons. And that's kind of what makes LA amazing, is that the mountains are so tight to the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when that wind kicked up and after 8 months of no rain, we have a bad situation. So I come to everybody in extremely bittersweet. I've kind of backed off a lot of my work in an effort to just kind of turn the corner on this.
Yeah. It's really difficult. I know people who have had to evacuate, so it's really close to home, even if I'm all the way over across the country, New York. I will leave resources in the show notes of this podcast to different ways that you can help out, people living there, the firefighters who are helping to fight the fires, people who've lost their homes. So please check the show notes. Whatever you can helps, even if it's spare clothes. I know I had a ton of clothes that I was going to donate and now I get to ship them over. So yeah, whatever you can do, I will leave all the information down in the description of this episode. Yeah, it's a really interesting time because now we're entering day 3. It's nighttime here for me and you're in the future, Craig. It's the crazy. Future where you are. It is so
Trust
crazy.
Me, it's so crazy.
Time.
You lose a whole day, right? Like you fly on January 8 and you land on January 10 and you never saw January 9.
Where did the day go? Does that count towards your years, your age?
Well, what happens is when you fly home, you fly on January 22 and you come back on January 22. You never lose the day. You come back, you fly at like noon on January 22 and you land at like 2 on January 22.
So you
The whole thing is like
too-
it's just a total mind blower. Like you can't explain it to me anymore. I'll leave you with that. We could keep it moving.
I can barely understand it. I'm like,
no,
so
I know.
what?
It
was a 2-hour flight?
12.
I mean, I'm with you there. I'm on my third cup of coffee today, just trying to learn about naps and taking naps, pace myself a little bit if I'm going to keep up with this Australian Open.
We had a late night. Novak finished with Basavareddy. I think it was, I don't know if Naomi went on until 10:30. I got home close to 1 a.m. After Osaka, went 3 with Caro, and Tommy Paul was still on the court. He ended as I was walking to the tram. Tommy Paul went 7-5 in the 5th with O'Connell. Yesterday was actually like one of the most. It was an unbelievable day.
It seemed like it.
Yesterday was an unbelievable day at a major. It was It was actually one of the great days at a major.
Okay. Let's talk about it. Let's break down day 2 of the Australian Open, because first of all, the order of play was crazy. I spent the night watching matches. I think I went to sleep my time around midnight. I woke up. Tommy Paul was still in the second set, and I was like, "Wow, we're going all in here." Just as a general overview, what really stood out to you day 2 of the Australian Open? Was it just the packed schedule, people? It was a Monday, basically.
Well, first of all, Sunday was one of the softest days, and then it rained torrential. One of the great things here is that, like, Australia Channel 9 is like the NBC of Australia, and they pump and they have their like morning show, their Today Show, and they pump the tennis hard, and they're on the tennis in a way that the Today Show just isn't, right? Like we don't.
Right.
During the U.S. Open, they do everything so nicely down here down under, and the weather report said, Melbourne has experienced some of the nicest weather in the history of the city until Sunday. And Sunday, the thunder and the lightning was illmatic. It was the hardest,
very, very frightening.
It was the hardest, craziest rain, and then that day was so soft. But Monday was one of the great Mondays. And there was a moment where I actually tweeted or posted that Novak, Carlitos, Kyrgios were all like on court at the same time, on 3 show courts.
Yeah.
And then every court had heavy action. Like the scores were crazy. I bounced out of Kyrgios's match after the first set and went to court 13, way out, the farthest court out of this whole, like it's like the deepest court. And Elise Mertens was clawing her way back into a brawl with the Swiss player Golubic, who, if people haven't seen Golubic play, she's got this one-handed backhand that I actually think is as nice of a one-handed backhand as you could see aesthetically. It's beautiful. And they were brawling out there. The vibes, the vibrations out in the grounds were tip top yesterday. It's a very dignified crowd for the most part. There's a lot of, nationalism, but I hope that's not the wrong word, but there's a lot of like Chilean people going for the Chileans. There's a lot of Brazilians going nuts for the Brazilians.
I saw that on day 1, that guy Hadi from Lebanon. It seemed like he had such a huge Lebanese contingency there.
There's a ton of Lebanese here. There's a ton of Greeks here. It's a great tournament. I just can't say enough about it. And then the price is right. Like in addition to it being affordable in Australian money, the exchange rate is bonkers. The exchange rate here is bonkers. So it's 60 cents to an Australian dollar. So if you do the math, $20 Australian is like 15, or it's like less. It's like 13 or it's like 13 or $12. Every time you get a check, you like want to like stand on your head and celebrate. Seriously, you just want to go nuts. It's like so exciting. Whether you're in a restaurant or you're at the tennis, it's just the best. It's the best. Yeah.
So what is actually, I haven't been to Melbourne or, the Australian Open. What is the layout? Is the tournament in the middle of the city?
So it's just like the way if like you were imagine if the tournament was in Central Park. So you
no way.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Or even better, it's like imagine if Central Park had the tournament and Central Park was on the East River or the Hudson River. So you could walk down the river. You could come down from your apartments. You could take a tram down. And then that whole downtown is like full of like, badass little restaurants, street art. It's just it's a really great, people get psyched out by the flight. I don't get psyched out by the flight. I go like this, like a wombat. I just go
and sleep.
Yeah, I cross my arms like this. I put my head down, and when I come back up, there's 6 hours left. Then I watch one episode of Game of Thrones. Then there's 4 hours left. Then I go back to sleep. Then I'm up, and I'm gone, baby. I'm right in this.
Yeah,
I'm in this. You get off the plane, and you get off the plane, and you just rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't lose days on this side of it. You feel good coming out of here.
That's awesome. That just sounds like such a great setup. I can almost imagine you leave your apartment and then you bike over to this Grand Slam, and you can
bike over a lot, and their bag policies are such that people will like buy a grounds pass and just like do their work from the grounds. Oh. People will just go out there to like party hardy. There's kind of like a little nightclubby situation. There's a Peroni tent that I maintain is the most delicious draft Peronis. They made the cup a little smaller, which I'm not happy about. But there's nothing like it. Like when the sun's pounding and it's hot, you can get a draft Peroni for $9 Aussie, which is like $5.50.
Wow.
It's great. Yeah.
That
I don't do a ton of eating and drinking at tennis tournaments, but if that's but usually like one day or one evening during a tournament, I'll go twist it out with like I've got a friend or two here that I'll put down. I take the credential off. I never like enjoy myself with my credential on. I take the credential off, and
and then you're just Craig.
No, and I just try to enjoy myself, and we have a few beers and sit out in the sun and maybe go watch some tennis, maybe just talk to each other. But this is a really fun tournament. It is a fun tournament.
Just listening to you, Craig, I'm calling Qantas. I'm going to start thinking about booking this flight because it just sounds great. And I mean, it looks gorgeous out your window right now. And other than the thunderstorms, like what is the weather like? Is it super hot? Are we talking New York humidity?
Yesterday was a very dry, nice weather, but it was like actually one of as nice of a days you could have. It was like just a dry spring day. Like you'd have in New York, with no humidity in the air.
Yeah.
Wow, there's no humidity in there. It's just really nice. But which was interesting because, very rarely do we see pro players get their lungs blown out where you can see you see a player huffing and puffing and unable to catch their breath, going to the changeover, coming back out, unable to catch their breath. And that's what Novak did to Basavareddy yesterday. And I hadn't really seen that. We used to joke around about it with Agassi. It's like Agassi would do that to players
Yeah.
where he might lose the first set, most likely not, but he would usually the score would be like 7-5, 6-4, 6-1, or 5-7, 7-5, 6-4, 6-1. And by the time you got to 6-1, the player was like, that player would need an IV. That player would need would be hospitalized. Like Andre would hospitalize players, and that's what Novak did to the kid. But the weather, in the sun in the afternoon, I think it was pretty hot in the sun for people.
Okay.
But it was nice in the shade. It was beautiful. Today it feels a little cool out there. I think it might be a similar day today.
Okay. Well, let's get into the tennis since you started with the Novak Basavareddy match. And we can start there really. Had you watched Nishesh Basavareddy before? I mean, he just turned pro, but he was on the challenger circuit for a bit.
I saw him play at the Ojai.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
We saw him play at the Ojai, and he was already being, he was already being identified as somebody who's not really losing to anybody. It's like something about college tennis. You see these guys; they're so good. The college players are so good, and there's a few guys. The guy Kid Zhang from Colombia, and then Basavareddy. They're beating these guys who are 13 UTRs, 2-1, and that was, we were hearing about that. Then all of a sudden, this kid started, he turned pro and he started, winning matches, and the level in pro tennis is so high. So I wasn't surprised that he played well. I was more curious what Novak's quality would be like with Andy on the court and these guys sitting on the court and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, you have to tell us everything, because from TV, it was almost surreal. It was just, I was like, are we watching a sketch or is this some sort of exhibition? Because there's Andy sitting on court and Novak just chatting with him.
Yeah, and Andy is the principal in a Uber Eats commercial out here. So the whole thing feels like a little bit manufactured, but it also feels to me like, Andy is like the fraternity house father that he couldn't leave college and he's back. He can't leave. Guy retired and he's back, in the players' lounge. And I say that not really jokingly. I don't know. We'll see what happens with this partnership or this coaching. The thing is that the Czech Radek Stepanek is there with Novak as well, right? And
okay,
my sense is that Radek is doing the real work for a salary.
Like the day-to-day.
Is doing the real work for a salary and a piece of the action, and Andy is there in some other role.
Yeah, because I guess Andy, from my understanding, they've agreed to work together through the Australian Open. So this might just be a short-lived venture. But it seems like, when this was first announced, I was shocked like everyone else. But then watching it go through and actually happen, it seems like, Novak seemed to maybe he needed anything, whatever it is,
Hey, listen, the Pro Tour is fun. It's fun. The Pro Tour is fun. You
need
go,
a buddy.
You get it. Yeah, you get a car picks you up. You stay in a penthouse suite. Car takes you to see all your friends. You go in. Everyone's so happy to see you. You've been doing it for 20 years. These guys get a little institutionalized, is what I think. But we'll see. Novak. If this is Novak's last year, he's allowed to do whatever he wants.
Right.
If this is his second to last year, he's allowed to do whatever he wants. What he did to that kid last night was impressive, to say the least. To blow out a 19-year-old's lungs like that was wild to see. By the end, the kid was like, he was like a jellyfish. He was like flopping around like a jellyfish out of the water. He couldn't,
and he can still.
I guarantee you, he is laying in bed right now, just like wondering what happened to him. He got knocked around like Floyd Mayweather would do that to fighters. Floyd Mayweather would punish a guy for round after round after round. By the end of it, you're looking at him, the guy's like sweaty and disheveled and his face is punched in. That's kind of how I felt about Basavareddy.
Oh,
Novak,
poor kid.
and Novak looked so like crisp. Novak looked so crisp. Yeah, he wasn't even barely sweating. It felt like by the time once he got to the back end.
That's cool. I mean, I've had the pleasure of talking to Nishesh at a challenger, and the one thing he did say he was working on was his fitness. And, I guess this was sort of a lesson in what else he needs to do to improve his fitness.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. The pro tennis tour is no joke. We saw that. Jim Courier, to me famously, but I think privately, said that you can't cheat the miles, and I think we saw that with Nick Kyrgios. That his inactivity essentially brought him to the point yesterday where he he couldn't win, right? Like he just couldn't.
Yeah.
Win. But you can't cheat the miles. The injuries kind of when you're not doing the work week in and week out, you get injured, and then when you get injured, coming back is a super long way back. Sorry, you were going to ask a question.
Well, I was going to say, what was that? Moving on to that match that he had with Jacob Fernley. I had listed that we do this watch list thing on Ground Pass where we post like the matches we want to watch if we were on the grounds. And I was guessing that court was going to be not only packed, but just for poor Jacob, a very hostile situation. What was the energy like on that?
It was less of a circus than I kind of privately had hoped. Like I really,
okay.
Yeah, I really wanted to if there was going to be a riot, like I wanted it to be I wanted to be there to see something really selfishly. I wanted to see him like take a set and call for an umpire to be taken out of the chair.
Yeah.
Like I would have liked to have him like throwing out guys in the crowd. Like I wanted it to go nuts just privately in my mind, but it wasn't. Nick was, I thought he was, I think he either knew he couldn't win or he, I don't know. I don't know. It was the one thing I'll say is that kid, that was the thing. It was like Novak, Alcaraz, and Nick are box office. And Osaka. People stayed for Osaka late.
Yeah.
No matter what you think about them, no matter what you think about any of those four players, they are the sport's, in my opinion, their biggest stars.
Right.
Bigger than anyone else. They get top billing. Nick Kyrgios is as big of a star as it comes, period. People can argue that against me, but I will tell you there's nothing like it when that guy is on a practice court or walking around. And the grand shame of that is that he doesn't play enough tennis, right? He's essentially off the tour. I like it when Nick was playing tennis. Like I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. But what did you think about Jacob Fernley, his opponent?
I think that kid he did the work. He went from 600 to 80, and his body is rock solid. He doesn't have an ounce of fat on his body. He is all business. He comes to work. He puts it. He's a. I hate to the thing about Nick too is that you see this prodigious talent. Like the way he hits his backhand blows my mind. The way he plays is so crazy, and you see this prodigious talent, and then you see a player like Fernley who doesn't have that talent, but he's just fit and he can play, and he is a serious person. And he was a horrible opponent for Nick too, because he just puts his head like Nick can't get like angry at him or like he doesn't want to, he couldn't like bait him into a shit show.
Engaging.
That's right. Yeah. There were there's always these players that are bad for that. the ones that are kind of emotionless. He's kind of an emotionless, all business, bad dude, and Nick's not gonna be disrespectful towards him or to turn it into a Tsitsipas thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was in there for the first set. Nick started to favor his. It looked like an ab, a high up ab, something up here, and that was the end of him.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
He was just shaking his head and screaming at his trainer.
Yeah, he probably needs reps. Like you said, he needs the time on court.
I think that time has come. It's like it said. Once you have injuries, it's a long way back. That is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So because you mentioned his name, I'm going to jump to this before we get to Naomi Osaka, because I totally want to talk about that match too. But Stefanos Tsitsipas, what happened?
Unclear. Sometimes people come to Australia not ready to go. Sometimes if you're up in Val d'Isere or Kitzbühel and you're skiing and you're with your chick, you don't get down to the summer down under ready to roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite things in tennis is to watch Stefanos Tsitsipas play on clay. I love to watch him glide around and play on clay. I always thought that when he lost that match to Novak, when he was way up in that match at the French, that kind of spelled the end for him as like a contender for majors. And I felt really sad about that. I'm a storyteller by nature, so that could be completely false. And it's like, well, but to watch Stefanos Tsitsipas in Monte Carlo, which is like the place he plays his best tennis, for me, it's a dream. I love to watch him play tennis when he's playing well. And I like that he's got a brain in his head and he's sort of quirky and he's curious. And, I like the players that have personalities. And I guess he wasn't ready to go yesterday. Yeah, I do hope though that he that he plays good tennis for longer. Part of me thinks that maybe he won't. We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, there was Mickelson there too, and I think I've watched Mickelson for a bit, and he's doing well too. Yeah.
No, he's bad to the bone. He's a mean, serious young kid, and he can play. And he's one of these guys that has a Marty Fish-like tick where he competes well. He's one of those guys that is like he just competes very, very well. And he competes and he just competes very, very well each and every point, each and every match. Very serious kid for such a young kid.
Yeah. Can't wait to see what's next for Mickelson. Again, I love his play. And like you, I do want Stefanos to do well. It is nice to have different personalities on tour, and he is a sensitive little soul, and you just hope he can find his tennis again. Naomi Osaka, come on. Like that was, first of all, the draw gods should stop putting her together with Caroline Garcia.
Yeah,
but how was that match?
That was a shame. That match came after the Basavareddy Novak match on Rod Laver Arena. It was late, and I thought that massive amount of the crowd stayed for it. I was actually hosted by her team in their box, so I had I was tight to the court, and I thought that Caro Garcia, kind of played better. And Naomi found a way to get her shit together and win that third set. I was fascinated by it because somehow Naomi's body language, her face is so descriptive, and she kind of has something like her sad face is really sad to me.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And I was I'm tight to the court, so I kept looking at her, and I'm like, shit, they're on serve. Man, she shouldn't look so sad. And then she I think the worst thing Caro Garcia did was play well, because when they're striping the ball, Naomi likes that. It's like when she gets moved around the court and sliced and diced and kind of moved off of that bait. When she's going cross-court backhands, cross-court forehands, and they're just striping the ball. Naomi gets into a groove, and I kind of think that happened.
Mm.
And I also just thought that Naomi competed very, very well, moved her serve around the box very well. It is unfortunate that they had to play each other again, because it'd be nice to see them both playing well and getting to like the round of 16. But now Naomi's got to play Karolina Mukova next round. So now she's got to play 20th seed. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, but I thought that, there's a lot less pomp and circumstance around her playing this tournament this year. I'm not used to seeing Muratoglu talking to her down on the court, which was sort of – but I'm told by her people that she really likes working with them.
That's good to know, yeah.
I think she's got some – she has an ab issue as well, so it'll be interesting to see if they get that under control. Women's tennis, they have a day rest in between these 7 matches you have to win, so it's better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that Muchova match, I remember they played at the U.S. Open and it went Muchova's way. We'll see if Naomi can turn that around, because if there's anyone that's slicey and dicey, it's Muchova.
I just think Mukova is just so super talented player. I think when she's playing well, it's something special to watch. I don't think there's really a player on tour that has that talent, the different styles of shots she can make, the way she plays, the hands is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
So I know you didn't really watch, we talked earlier, you didn't really watch most of this match, but I actually mostly want to bring it up because you are the one who scooped this, and this is how I knew Tiafoe was going to Lululemon, was I saw a post from you, and I was like, oh, really? I thought, because everyone was saying something else, and you just popped up with Lululemon.
So the story is that, Francis was signed to Octagon, and a few years ago,
What is Octagon for people who don't know?
It's an agency. The biggest agencies in tennis is IMG, Octagon. I have to think of who the others are, but there are these big agents, and Tiafoe was managed by Kelly Wolf and Jorge Salkeld, these longtime agents from Octagon, and in the thick of the darkness, under the what do they say? In the darkness, he left He left and went to Jill Smoller at IMG, who is Serena's agent. Jill Smoller. So he's a Nike contract. When that Nike contract ended, the IMG WME people got a deal done with Lululemon. Lululemon, the head of marketing, is very close friends with the head of the guy who does the marketing deals for William Moore, the WME people. So that deal got done. I always say to young people, whatever sport it is, if they ever do ask me my thoughts, I say, man, when you're on TV, whatever it is you're doing, if you're going to be on TV, look sensational. Like if you're gonna go out and fight, come out and look sensational. If you're gonna come out on the court, look sensational. If you're gonna do an interview, look sensational. I'm not sure that Lululemon did that with their players. I don't think that's the right color pink, but that's just my personal opinion. Like, I don't, and everything's an indicator. Francis just played like a super tough 5-setter. A year or two ago when he changed rackets, the cosmetic screwed him up, and that was a big situation for Yonex. So yeah, he's in new clothes. I didn't see the match. I guess time will tell what the Hugo Bosses and the Lululemons, they don't make the interest in their sponsorship of these players is sometimes unclear to me. I don't purport to know the machinations of it, but generally speaking, my understanding is that they do it for brand awareness.
Right.
More so than to sell tennis clothes.
Right, right. Well, because that's the thing, because for the most part, you can't find these kits. I mean, when you think of someone like Leila Fernandez, her stuff only just started. You will see a skirt here or something like that. So you're sort of like, well, but she's been signed with Lululemon for a while. Where's their tennis line that I can, buy?
Same thing with New Balance. You go into the New Balance stores, you can never find their tennis stuff. With that said,
know what? Coco said that on court. She said it on court that they're soon going to start being able to purchase what she's wearing, because I mean, that dress she's wearing right now is fire. Like it's one of the best looking things she's worn. And I know so many kids who are probably like, I want to go get that. And they're not going to find it.
So I think that for your list, for your people, the New Balance has won the Australian Open. They may have won the tennis merch for the year. Their initiative at the Australian Open, that green on green is bad to the bone. Tommy Paul looked bad to the bone. Coco Gauff looks bad to the bone. And then all the people buying the merch. The Ralph Lauren merch is substandard year after year. And at the Australian Open, the Ralph Lauren merch at Wimbledon, some of it is nice, actually, but New Balance has a store here at the Aussie Open, and the stuff is nice, super nice. Oh. The walk around shoes, the running shoes, the green looks so good on TV, and it looks better even in person. Yeah,
Craig, you might have to make room in your suitcase for me.
Could happen.
Just a small section. It's okay.
Could happen. Could happen.
But no, their stuff has been looking great. I'm very fascinated by sort of the tennis clothing scene. We have a mutual acquaintance, Ian Module of 40 Love Tennis. I think he also runs the Ojai tournament. We're going to sit down and talk all about fashion kits because that's like a big fun interest. Because that's what people see. That's what a casual fan gets to connect themselves to the sport, Well,
so, it's what makes tennis interesting are the venues and the clothes and who's in the clothes and how the clothes look. Tennis is unique in that way. Like we don't ever say like, man, you name another sport where you're like his shorts and not his shorts, or I like her shoulder pads and not his shoulder. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we don't have that. Nobody speaks to it. Tennis is different, and I always loved it. It's one of my great criticisms of Tennis Channel is they don't have equipment and apparel programming. I think that they always should have had a once a month or once even a session special on the clothes, on the strings, on the balls, on the rackets, on the shoes.
So we've talked now about like what's hitting and New Balance and, all the new Lululemon coming into the scene. What about this, sort of like the historic sports brand, Nike, Adidas, like the stuff I'm seeing people don't really like.
People are saying that, but I have to say, part of me feels like it's the photography. The photography is worse than the clothes. Like I was looking at Jess Pegula. She beat this young Australian girl, Maya Joint. I was looking at her and I said to my colleague, I said, man, I think that color red looks pretty good in real life. I think she looks pretty good in her clothes in real life. I thought the same thing about Sabalenka. I thought Sabalenka's clothes, same thing. I was tight on the court. I was tight to the court for her match against Sloane Stephens on Sunday. And I was looking at her and I was like, oh, I think her clothes look good. And quite often you can't see it in these terrible pictures that we're getting of these models sometimes, or even the players like over seamless white or like a blue screen or whatever it is. Like the material, or even Sinner. I thought Sinner looked quite good. I thought that, but the material that these players play in quite often is like, it's like high tech, super nice. sometimes there's like little details in the material that are super cool. Like, you see like Adidas's clothes from Wimbledon and you just see white on white. But then when you get up close, it's like beautiful. Like I have a beautiful velour, like their tournament white warm-up suit is gorgeous. So
interesting.
Yeah, no, you have to like sometimes you have to kind of look up close at some of the clothes. Like the photography is worse than the clothes.
So are they just not marketing it right?
No, they don't care. Well, that's for certain. But what marketing is done well in tennis? We're not seeing it. We don't see that. That doesn't exist.
This is true. It's non-existent. But I kind of get what you're saying because, again, these brands, Nike, Adidas, they're a sports brand, and they're probably really good at the technical fiber and the materials that the players can play in, which we might not appreciate especially with Nike. They do those photos with sort of like just like JCPenney models over white background. And you're like, what's this?
So tragic. And like when you're walking around a tournament, when you see a player these players look pretty good in their clothes in person. And sometimes it just doesn't translate onto, Stan Wawrinka always looks terrible in his clothes. He doesn't look terrible in his clothes when you're standing up next to him. He looks like a god, it's like, his muscles are crazy. You know what I mean?
What about, I think we've talked about it. We have to hit on. What about on though?
I don't know what to say about on. I don't know a lot about their foray into clothing and signing these players head to toe. But it makes sense that you would want to sign their players head to toe.
Right.
The Brazilian Fonseca, Ben Shelton, and Iga are the three athletes that come to mind. Fonseca, he's Brazilian, and a big principle in on is the son of the Brazilian billionaire, Jorge Paulo Leman's son, Mark Lehman. They also own the Labor Cup. So they made this big foray into tennis with Roger.
Yeah.
Jorge Paulo Leman is Swiss and Brazilian. So there was that connection. So sometimes if you do the math on stuff, you can see how things work a little differently. I don't have a great feel for what their shoe is like, nor their what their clothes are like. But I would just like to see. I don't know. I like to see players in good clothes. I like to see players in bad clothes. I like to see players, that can't dress themselves. I like to see players that can dress themselves. I like it all. Like for me, it's all a lot of fun. That's why we're talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And this is also why I love talking about you. Like you have these, I'm going to put links to all your newsletter, your social media. I'm going to put links in this show note. And guys, Craig is a good tennis follow. I'm just going to say, because I learned so much about like the inside world of tennis that you don't usually get sometimes. And like that little story you just said about, Brazil, I was like, that's great.
The devil's in the details, and somehow, what's happened in tennis is that we don't have fans anymore. We have either fanatics or we have people that come in for the U.S. Open for a couple of weeks. It's like there's different groups. Somehow the politics and the business doesn't get disseminated in the way that it does in NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball. So, or even the NHL. So there's kind of like a rhyme to my reason. Like I'm trying to sort of, do that, right? Like say,
bring that vibe. Yeah.
Well, say like this agent did this deal.
Yeah.
And it was a deal that got done as a payback for this deal. And these guys don't like each other and this and this. And it all sort of, so then all of a sudden when you're watching that match, there's more going on in the match.
I love it. You're telling a story. And you're giving it context.
It's a different way to look at it. I look at the tennis through a different set of eyes as a sort of insider with kind of a unique perspective for sure.
Okay, Craig, we could talk forever, but before we go back to the tennis, you are about to head into day 3 of the Australian Open. What are you looking at? Anything specific?
I'm going to hustle over to the Grand Hyatt for the greatest breakfast. It's like a football field or a cricket pitch of everything. There's like dim sum. There's every single food and it's like a giant tennis event. I'm going to move there quick because they close at 11. Then I'm going to go to Margaret Court. I'm going to take a look at Holger Rune. I had his mom on my show a year ago, probably 11 months ago, and I have interest in seeing what he is going to do this year. I'd like to see him play well.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go watch him. He's first on Margaret Court. And then I'm just going to play it by ear. I got to see what this day looks like. There's a big difference in the days. The Monday, like the Wednesday now, is going to be chock full of nuts. And the Tuesday, Thursday is soft.
Okay.
With players. So, and I'm just waking up here, actually. So I got to kind of get myself sorted out to see what the day is going to bring.
Awesome. Well, I am excited to see where are you posting during this Australian Open?
I've gone quiet. I'm going to wait until after Wednesday when these wins supposedly. I want once LA is out of immediate peril, and once LA is out of immediate peril, I'm going to get back to business. But
okay.
I'm a contributor to the Second Serve, which I think is really the premier periodical in tennis now. Open is the print magazine. Second Serve. There's a weekly newsletter that's typically written by Gary Nathan of The Defector and Second Serve. Second Serve, it's thesecondserve.com, is really a great place to get your news. And Ben Rothenberg is doing an unbelievable job on his newsletter. Ben Rothenberg's newsletter is unbelievable. He is down here totally crushing the journalistic game. As I said, I'm going to come back up for air in a day or two. I'm being super sensitive about what's going on in this LA stuff. It doesn't feel appropriate for me to be having so much fun, I think. And we come down here to work, but when you're at a tennis tournament, there's sort of like this mixture of like dinner's out and you're watching tennis, and while we're working, it's people always say to me, have fun. And I'm like, man, I don't got to go to work, but it is fun. It is fun. And I don't really feel comfortable showing too much fun for another few days until these winds calm down in LA.
Completely understandable. I will leave the links to all of those places down below. And we look forward to having you back, and hopefully the fires just ending in California, or at least slowing down. Craig, thank you. Thank you so much. I love talking tennis with you. It's a good time. And go get that breakfast before it closes.
Thank you very much.